They won't let me in. This basalt stone prison has stood here for 153 years. They let people in, lots of people, but they won't let me in. All I want to do is tell a story, to tell you about this amazing old prison. But never mind, I'll find another one.
Urban Archaeology, Mount Eden Prison.
I have based this film on the nexus theory, which relies on user involvement with multiple decision-making, organizational change, and active development. This film will attempt to highlight the good and bad aspects of having a prison in the heart of Auckland City. Each semiotic cycle is the social practice that a social action is a part of. I could tell you a colourful history of this prison, but there is no time. So moving along, today, this edifice finished in 1917 to house 220 prisoners is called Mount Eden Correctional Facility. Auckland society, the likes of you and me, go about our daily tasks largely unaware and certainly not the least bit concerned about what goes on inside. As long as there has been people, there has been crime, and of course, all crime should be punished. Auckland grew more quickly than our forefathers anticipated. First, there was an influx of 12,000 imperial soldiers to protect approximately 432 settlers from the perceived threat of the Maori King movement, followed in quick succession by a mass Maori migration from rural areas into Auckland town. The Maori were dispossessed, poor and hungry due to the recent colonization. Interestingly, there were very few Maori incarcerated up until the 1940s. Without conscience, the first imperial leaders wreaked havoc among the Maori, slaughtering them with shotguns, stealing their land, and spreading disease. Then there was World War I, with conscientious objectors and deserters, all thrown into prison. I'm not quite sure what their crimes were. Meanwhile, professional and business people, those with lots of dough, were busy setting up home on the sides of Mount Eden, overlooking this maximum security prison, and using stone quarried by the prisoners for their homes and garden walls. Incredibly to my mind, they even built an elite boys' school, Auckland Grammar, in 1869, right next door to the prison with just a fence between them. Did having a prison as their neighbour deter the business and professional might of Auckland? Absolutely not. Auckland just kept growing. From a population in 1864 of approximately 12,500, by 1916 it was numbered at 134,000, and today the larger Auckland area has a population of 1.5 million. But I digress. The government was onto a good thing. They stated in a report in 1877, of the reformatory or progressive principles demanded from prisoners, his utmost efforts in some industrious and remunerative employment. It has been found to work admirably and, among other good effects, create strong competitive feeling. Yeah, that's what they said. 100 years later, that competitive behaviour has turned into the prison fight club. Even the warders take bets on those outcomes. We have progressed so well. The report went on to state, the first punishment in their criminal career ought to be made as distasteful as possible, whereas at present, beyond the loss of liberty, there is little to cause unpleasant memories. To that end, successive governments have given a thumbs up to using prison labour to undertake vast social, economic projects to inflate the government purse. Having built Mount Eden Prison, prisoners were then put to work building the Great South Road in the 1800s, extending Pākehā influence and law further south. That central bypass has now been replaced by the Southern Motorway. In 1913, in the middle of the North Island, an area of 16,000 acres was planted with 41 million pine trees. Today we know it as the Kayangaroa Forest, all prison labour. Earlier, I showed a graph illustrating Maori incarceration as being very low until the 1950s. However, as can be seen, this is now 50.7% and climbing. But surely a contributing factor to this falls into sectors of poverty, unemployment, drug use and gang membership, and never lose sight of the mentally unwell. They also are incarcerated today. It may appear we as a society are progressive and caring in our methods of incarceration, but at what stage in time did we agree to house our mentally unstable cheek and jowl in a penal system? One should seriously question political motive. It was said in the newspapers recently by Peter Gluckman that Prisons are universities of crime, which have pulled in lawbreakers and locked them into a lifetime of crime. Interesting, and ultimately, whose fault? Gluckman continued his statement saying that public demand and political positioning is what is sending prison rates soaring. Very true. So, to deal with rising crime rates, our elected governments have continued to build more, bigger, beautiful prisons, and outsourced responsibility to agencies such as Serco, an English company with a very poor track record to date in New Zealand. Has the Mount Eden Correctional Facility had any impact on Auckland's urban archaeology? Of course, the answer is yes and no. Auckland has built up to and around the original prison since the 1860s. By and large, we drive around and past the prison day and night, fulfilling our social and economic responsibilities. Oh, there was that shocking prison riot in 1965 started by an escape attempt which destroyed large parts of Mount Eden. Not too much of an impact on Aucklanders, perhaps just a little bit of excitement, but generally, nah. The average Aucklander doesn't pay too much attention to Mount Eden Prison. It's always just been there. Then, in 2008, the powers that be decided to rebuild. So amazing. Aucklanders now drive past an architectural building of beauty, and in time we will completely forget it is the prison, which was once a visual landmark. This month, today, we're in the grip of the Heritage Festival. Many old buildings and features around our city are on display and open for tours. We are so proud of our old buildings, except Mount Eden. It doesn't get a mention. It is, and has always been, ignored. Today's corrections cost the taxpayer $1.3 billion per year and has assets totaling $5 billion. Prisoners work in the corrections engineering workshops, garages, laundries, bakeries, and the list goes on. All at reduced paid labour, and they run corrections many farms spread across New Zealand. Wow! Prisons are the financial business to be in. Just another Auckland business.